Every once in a while, an athlete will come along and just shake up the sport that they're involved in. So like Steph Curry, who changed the game of basketball and how it's played today, but there are some athletes who will change the broader culture within that sport. For that reason, I love Allen Iverson. Apart from his just insane play on the court, he was arguably more of a cultural icon than he was a player. And sometimes it's not just one person that shakes a sport up, it's an entire team. In 1991, the Michigan Fab Five busted onto the college basketball scene with their bravado, their baggy pants, and their black socks. They went against the grain and just defied all the norms of college basketball. And people loved it. And as someone that only rocks black socks and did wear baggy pants when I played in high school, I really appreciate the trend that they set. They were definitely like the most popular basketball team, including the NBA at the time. Now, 4 out of the Michigan 5 went on to be drafted into the NBA. The best and most famous player out of them, probably Chris Webber, and Jalen Rose. He does commentary for ESPN now. But the entire Fab Five, they'll definitely go down in history as one of the most impactful, even though they didn't win any championships, the most impactful teams in history. Now, the particular shoe that I'm reviewing today wasn't particularly well received when it was first introduced to the general public. It wasn't until celebrities like Will Smith and Jerry Seinfeld wore it on the TV show that it kind of gained steam. And then the Fab Five started wearing them. It became like the de facto basketball shoe. It really just burst open the popularity of this shoe. The Nike Air Flight Huarache OG Varsity Purple and Royal Blue. Now Huarache, the original meaning of Huarache, is actually a Mexican sandal. So a bit of trivia for you if you didn't know. And this shoe is coming out on June 7th for $125. Now there was a running version of the shoe, the Air Huaraches. That was the origin of the shoe, and they kind of extended it into a mid-cut for basketball players. Back then, pretty much all shoes were either mid or high cuts because people didn't think their ankles would be protected if it was a low top shoe until like Kobe Bryant came along and challenged that norm. But regardless, they kind of tweaked the Air Huaraches for a basketball purpose. And right off the bat, I think the silhouette and the colorway, oof, it is. This might be a top 10 cop for me for 2023. I love this OG colorway, predominantly white, but the blue and purple just, it goes so well together. And notice how there's no swoosh on the entire upper sole anywhere on the shoe. That's because the designers of the shoe purposefully wanted this to be very minimalistic, very lightweight, so they got rid of anything they could. They didn't add to the shoe. And with this unique design, it kind of just stands on its own. So the leather on this upper sole is pretty nice. There is like a coating over it, but overall, pretty nice leather. And the huge part of the upper sole, which is also the most distinct feature about the shoe, is that neoprene material that you see right under the leather overlay. Now, co-designer Tinker Hatfield, he designed this shoe with Eric Avar. Tinker Hatfield went on a water skiing trip and he was wearing water skiing boots made out of neoprene. So he was inspired by that. He liked the snugness and the tightness and the fit of the shoe that he was wearing. So he decided to incorporate neoprene into this shoe. And the neoprene, if you're wondering, it feels soft, it's like squishy. It feels very durable, like you can kind of stretch and pull it. And on the heel counter, you see this TPU cage that says Nike as well as Air. That's supposed to provide more durability and more support. And because of the heel counter, because of the design, one of the most distinguishable booties of all Nike shoes. And at the top of the ankle collar, there's more caging, very unique black cage around the ankle that's made out of synthetic nubuck, or what Nike calls Durabuck. Don't love that material, feels kind of cheap. However, in very limited amounts on the shoe, it's not the worst. So the midsole of the shoe is Phylon, so lightweight, provides more cushioning than like a polyurethane or rubber midsole. So this shoe, even though it looks pretty big, like it takes up a lot of space, because of this Phylon midsole, it is light, it is weight saving, it does feel pretty light on the feet. Now this shoe does feature a Nike Air unit both on the heel and the forefoot. And on Nike.com's description, they actually make an effort to call that out and mention how it's updated to include 2 Nike Air units. Now I don't know, I was barely born when this shoe first came out, so I don't know and I can't find online if originally this shoe only had a Nike Air unit on the heel. So maybe that's why Nike.com is saying they updated it to have 2 Nike Air units. If you know, please let me know in the comments below. But I do like that, extra cushioning, can't complain about it. Now a very cool detail on the midsole is that F, that's like debossed into the midsole. F standing for flight. Obviously this is the Air Flight Huarache made specifically for basketball. Love that little subtle nuance. And probably my favorite part about the shoe is the outsole, particularly that Nike green that you see on the midfoot. I love that green color amongst the purple and the blue. Kind of sticks out, kind of doesn't fit in too well, but it does have that very retro vintage vibe that's very prominent back in the 90s. I love it. And the traction itself, it is a mix of this herringbone traction as well as this, I don't know what the pattern is called, but like straight lines, I guess. And as a fan of herringbone traction, even though I wouldn't play ball in this nowadays, I think it'll work pretty well and it still holds up. And the tongue of the shoe also made of that neoprene material extending all the way up, and you see right in the middle of the tongue, in rubber, that Nike Huarache logo. I really like that logo. It's so underrated. Love it. Now notice how this shoe has 2 rows of eyelets, so you can customize the fit and feel of the shoe. As a white footer, I really like that option. This shoe doesn't come with any extra laces. Not too sure, to be honest, of what other color I would go with instead of the default white. I really like the way it looks already. Maybe in like a blue or purple, black. Nah, I think white is perfect as it can be. And the box of the shoe is the standard black Nike Huarache box. I particularly love the logo that's on this box. Love that. Now, from a distance, you might feel like this is a sticker. It's actually not. It's like embossed on the box. Love that. You can't peel it off. Doesn't come off. Really like that. Apart from that, pretty generic Nike box. Now moving on to size and comfort, I'm a size 9.5 true to size. I went with a 9.5 for the shoe, even though I do have wide feet, and I will say it is a very snug fit. However, even as a wide footer, there's no way on the shoe that feels uncomfortable, like too tight. It's very snug, so if you don't like a very snug fit, definitely consider going up half a size, but for this shoe in particular, I like the way it fits. It's almost like perfectly wrapped around my feet. The padding inside with that neoprene, I feel like my feet are solidly in place, but depending on preference, maybe if you like a very loose fitting shoe, consider going up half a size if you're a wide footer. Now I'm using the first row of eyelets as the default. Maybe if I went with the second row, it'll feel a bit different, but I like the way it is. I like a snug fit as long as there's no areas where it's like uncomfortable and it's stiff and hurts. I really think this is one of the more comfortable shoes that I own. Now cushioning wise, it is pretty decent as well. 2 Nike Air units on the heel and the forefoot. The insoles are pretty generic. It doesn't have those like super squishy feeling to it like modern day shoes have, but generally I prefer a flatter feeling anyway. I'm just old. My back is very busted up. Same with my knees. I feel like flat shoes are just better for my back and knees, but if you do like that foamy, squishy feel, this shoe is probably not perfect for you. Now that brings the total sole score to 18 out of 25. Round average to higher end of all the shoes that I've reviewed. Colorway wise, I think it's perfect. This is such an OG colorway. If you were around back in the 90s, if you grew up in the 90s, even if you weren't around when the shoe first dropped, it was still popular all the way up until like the early 2000s. And this colorway is just, honestly, it's not talked about enough. It's legendary in my opinion. I love this colorway, not a thing I would change about it. Material wise, like I said, the leather is pretty nice, not the best, but it's good. The neoprene, I feel like it just really stabilizes your feet. It provides a very snug fit. I really love that. Not to mention the Phylon midsole along with 2 Nike Air units. Can't complain too much about the material. The only bit of room improvement is that kind of synthetic nubuck that you see on the caging on the ankle collar. That was like premium nubuck or suede. Oof, this would be hard to beat. Comfort-wise, like I said before, probably one of the most comfortable shoes that I own currently. So stable, it just locks your feet in place. So snug. Really like the comfort of this shoe. Now versatility, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like it's a super versatile shoe. Some people might think it's a bit too weird, bit too different. But in my opinion, because I've seen people rock these casually, and I was always just so jealous of my friend who had this shoe, I think it's a very versatile silhouette. I would not wear this shoe to ball in, but casually, I'd rock these with pretty much anything. And the colorway itself, because it's predominantly white, can't really go wrong with hints of blue and purple. Whew, this shoe, if you can't tell, I'm in love. Storytelling wise, there's not much of a story to tell. It is just a general release, a very legendary general release of an OG colorway, but in terms of the story, there's not much behind it. Some shoes just hit different for me. This shoe, the Nike Air Flight Huarache, is definitely one of my favorite shoes of all time. I can't say it's timeless like the Jordan 1s, 3s, or 4s. However, as someone that grew up in the 90s, I'm always going to have a special spot for this shoe in my heart. So that's it. Thanks for watching Sole Inclined. Let me know what you think of the Air Flight Huarache, Varsity Purple, and Royal Blue. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And remember, tomorrow may never come, so wear your shoes.